He walked into the bank for cash. He walked out in handcuffs. It was a cold, ordinary January afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia. Inside a Bank of America branch, the atmosphere was quiet, routine. A man approached the counter to make a withdrawal. He just wanted to get some cash from his own account. A simple, everyday errand. But this simple trip to the bank was about to escalate into something else entirely. The man at the counter was Ryan Coogler, the celebrated director of the blockbuster film. He was in Atlanta working on the sequel, a major contributor to the city's booming film industry. But in that moment, his identity and accomplishments meant nothing. Suddenly, the quiet of the bank was shattered. Police officers entered, their movements swift and serious. Within moments, their guns were drawn and pointed in his direction. The confusion was immediate, the danger palpable.
Whoa, what's going on?
Hey everyone, where are you watching from? Please subscribe and like to support the channel. Back to the story. Instead of walking out with his money, Coogler was led away from the teller's counter in handcuffs. His colleagues, waiting for him in an SUV outside, were also detained. This was not a scene from one of his movies. This was his reality. The images, later released from body camera footage, were jarring. A world-renowned storyteller trapped inside a frightening story he didn't write. The incident quickly spread beyond the bank walls, igniting a firestorm on social media and in the news. It sparked a major conversation, forcing a national reckoning with uncomfortable questions. Why was a respected filmmaker treated like a criminal? It touched on bigger systemic issues that many people face every day: race, fear, and the hidden biases that shape how we see each other. For many, the story felt painfully familiar, a confirmation that success does not always protect you from suspicion. The entire unbelievable event was triggered by a single, simple request. So what exactly set all of this in motion? It all began with a piece of paper. On January 7, 2022, Ryan Coogler entered a Bank of America branch, dressed for a cool Atlanta day, and anonymity. A hat, sunglasses, a face mask, common at the time. He approached to withdraw a significant amount of cash, $12,000, to pay a household employee who preferred cash. He sought discretion for everyone's safety. He wrote a note. "I would like to withdraw $12,000 cash from my checking account. Please do the money count somewhere else. I'd like to be discreet." The slip was handed over. A system alert triggered due to the amount. Standard procedure, nothing unusual. But her interpretation went beyond protocol. No clarifying questions, no manager consult for privacy. She perceived signs of a robbery in progress. Management was informed. 911 was called. An attempted robbery reported. Within minutes, officers arrived. 2 entered the bank. They located Coogler. Guns drawn. Orders given. Red flags or reflexes? When the teller later explained her actions to police, her account was a cascade of mounting anxieties. From her perspective, behind the plexiglass, the situation was escalating from unusual to threatening with every passing second. Her primary lens was one of fear and suspicion. She pointed to several factors that, in her mind, didn't add up. First, his appearance. He had on sunshades indoors. He wore a black hat and a face mask. While common during the pandemic, she interpreted the combination as an attempt to obscure his identity. In her statement, she told police, "Those are the red flags we look for." Bank staff are trained to be vigilant, to spot anomalies that could signal a robbery in progress. The goal is to protect employees and customers. But this training, designed for security, can sometimes lead to misinterpretation. The handwritten note, intended for discretion, only amplified her alarm. Instead of seeing a customer trying to be careful with a large sum of money, she saw a criminal tactic. A way to pass a demand without speaking aloud and alerting others. Her personal circumstances intensified her fear. She later told officers she was pregnant, a fact that made her feel incredibly vulnerable and heightened her concern for her own safety and that of her unborn child. It was a perfect storm: official training, profound personal fear, and perhaps unconscious bias. She saw a potential robber, not a high-profile customer trying to be cautious. Standard procedure might have involved consulting a manager or using a private room, But in her panic, the teller bypassed those steps. The body camera footage from the responding officers provided an unflinching look at the human cost of this misunderstanding. It captured Ryan Coogler's raw reaction in real time. He wasn't angry. He wasn't aggressive. He was deeply, profoundly shaken. The shock was palpable as he tried to process what was happening.
I ain't had guns on me in a while, bro.
It was a casual line that carried the heavy weight of history and experience. A moment later, he articulated the absurdity of the situation with stunning clarity.
I just had guns drawn for taking money out my own account.
He presented his driver's license and his Bank of America card. As the officers began the process of verification, the entire dynamic started to shift. The report would later classify the incident as simply a bank mistake. But the teller's 911 call had already set events in motion that couldn't be undone. Meanwhile, officers were already moving in. The footage hit timelines and a nerve. Once the body cam video went public, the news spread like wildfire across social media. Everyone weighed in. The reactions were a torrent of shock, anger, and for many, a sad, weary familiarity. The question echoed in countless posts. If this could happen to a world-famous director like Ryan Coogler, what happens to ordinary black people every single day? The NAACP quickly condemned the incident, framing the absurdity of the situation. Imagine trying to discreetly withdraw your own money, only to be profiled as a bank robber. Soon the hashtag #SalBankingWhileBlack was trending again, a digital rallying cry for a shared, frustrating experience. Stories like this aren't just celebrity gossip. They serve as high-profile examples of deeply embedded systemic racism. This was not an isolated event. Complicating the narrative, some noted the bank teller was also black. This sparked a difficult but necessary conversation online about internalized bias. The idea that negative stereotypes can be unconsciously absorbed and acted upon, even against one's own community. The irony of the location was not lost on observers. Coogler was in Atlanta filming the sequel. The first film, released in 2018, was a cultural phenomenon, grossing over $1.3 billion and reshaping black representation in blockbuster cinema. Atlanta, often called a black mecca, has become a hub for film production, which brings significant jobs and revenue to the local economy. Coogler wasn't just a customer, he was a creator, an employer, and a major economic contributor to the city. Yet, he was mistaken for a threat. While he was being detained inside, police had also stopped two of his colleagues who were waiting for him in an idling SUV, their descriptions matching the person inside the bank. Only after his ID and Bank of America card were verified did the officers concede it was all a mistake. The term banking while black describes a spectrum of discriminatory experiences, from undue scrutiny and suspicion to outright denial of service. The stories poured out. A San Diego attorney who, despite presenting 3 forms of ID, was refused when trying to cash a $12,000 settlement check. A surgeon in Texas who was refused service when she tried to open a new account with a $16,000 check from her new employer. This isn't just anecdotal. A 2022 Fair Housing Center report found that black testers were treated significantly worse than white testers in over 40% of their visits to assess customer service at banks. Wealth, professional status, and clear identification are too often not enough to overcome the default of suspicion. Apologies came quickly. Accountability, less so. A reported robbery in progress triggers high-urgency police response. They arrived fast, assessed, moved to neutralize a perceived threat. Guns were drawn before a word was exchanged. Decisions leaned entirely on a panicked report. Could tactics have secured the scene without immediate guns? After verifying, roles shifted from enforcers to mediators. They acknowledged the bank's error. Officially, Coogler was never in the wrong. But the trauma of those first moments remained. An apology is a start, not a solution. Banks must train beyond red flags to recognize bias, provide private options for large transactions, default to service and verification, not suspicion. Officers need tools to slow down and assess beyond initial report. On a seemingly ordinary day in January 2022, Acclaimed film director Ryan Coogler, known for blockbuster hits like Black Panther, walked into a Bank of America branch in Atlanta, Georgia. His purpose was simple: to withdraw a large sum of cash from his own account. He approached the teller with a pre-written withdrawal slip, a measure taken for discretion and safety. The note reportedly read, "I would like to withdraw $12,000 cash from my checking account. Please do the money count somewhere else. I'd like to be discreet." This request, however, was misinterpreted. What should have been a routine transaction quickly escalated into a tense and public confrontation that would soon capture national attention and spark a widespread conversation about race perception, institutional practices. The situation deteriorated when the teller, upon receiving the note, felt a sense of alarm. Instead of proceeding with the transaction or seeking clarification, the teller initiated a bank alert protocol which led to a 911 call being placed. The release of the police body camera footage was a pivotal moment in the public's understanding of the Ryan Coogler incident. The video provided a direct, unfiltered view of the interactions between the director and the responding officers. The footage shows the police entering the bank, cautiously approaching Mr. Coogler from behind. He stands at the teller's counter. An officer can be seen unholstering his firearm.
Place your hands behind your back.
The director, visibly surprised, complies without resistance.
Whoa, what's going on?
Handcuffs are placed on his wrists. His voice conveys shock and bewilderment, not aggression. Throughout the recorded interaction, Mr. Coogler remained remarkably calm. As he was being led out of the bank, he repeatedly tried to explain the situation, identifying himself, referencing his Bank of America account.
I'm just trying to pull money out of my own account.
The officers, while firm, listened to his explanations. Officers checked his identification. They confirmed his status with the bank's staff. After verifying his identity and the legitimacy of the transaction,
You're good. We got you.
the director, clearly shaken, expressed his frustration. That statement resonated with millions online. The 911 call made by the bank teller provided a critical piece of the puzzle, revealing the mindset and the specific concerns that triggered the police response. The audio recording, later released to the public, captured the teller's description of the situation to the emergency dispatcher. In the call, the teller, who was a pregnant black woman, described a man who had passed her a note requesting a large withdrawal, asking for the money to be counted discreetly. She interpreted his request for discretion, combined with the large amount of cash, as suspicious behavior.
He's trying to rob the bank.
A stark statement that immediately framed the event as a high-stakes crime in progress. In her conversation with the 911 operator, the teller provided a description of Mr. Coogler, noting his clothing, hat, sunglasses. She explained that a transaction alert had been triggered on her computer screen.
It's a robbery.
This perception, whether justified or not, was the sole basis for the emergency call. The teller was not acting out of malice, but out of a perceived threat to her safety and the security of the bank. The release of the 911 transcript and audio added a layer of complexity to the public's understanding of the incident. Following the incident, Atlanta Police Department issued an official statement. Bank of America issued an official statement. The police report was made public. It gave a step-by-step account from the officer's perspective. Officers were dispatched after a 911 call, reporting a bank robbery, arrival detention of Mr. Coogler and colleagues' investigation at the scene. It confirms Mr. Coogler's identification was legitimate, and his Bank of America account was legitimate. The teller had made a mistake. The report states Mr. Coogler was never in the wrong. He was immediately taken out of handcuffs.
Officers acted appropriately based on the information they were given.
They were responding to an active bank robbery in progress, a high priority, potentially dangerous call. Officers drawing their weapons, handcuffing the individual matching the suspect's description, actions consistent with standard operating procedure. The report cleared officers of procedural misconduct.
We deeply regret that this incident occurred. It never should have happened, and we have apologized to Mr. Coogler.
Those statements helped establish consensus on the basic facts. But the statements did not quell the broader public debate. Once the news of Ryan Coogler's arrest broke, especially after the body camera footage was released, social media platforms erupted with a torrent of reactions. The incident quickly went viral. Ryan Coogler, Star Banking. While black, trending for days on Twitter and other platforms, banking while black became a rallying cry. Millions of users shared the story, shock, anger, a weary sense of familiarity. Many saw the incident not as an isolated mistake, but as a high-profile example of a systemic problem. The outrage was fueled by the stark contrast between Mr. Coogler's status and his treatment. Here was a financially successful, globally recognized director, and yet he was still perceived as a potential criminal while simply trying to access his own money. This resonated deeply with many people in the black community and beyond who shared their own personal stories of being followed in stores, denied service, or questioned by security for no apparent reason. These personal anecdotes, shared in comment sections and video responses, transformed the Coogler incident from a celebrity news story into a collective moment. The public conversation also included a wide range of perspectives. Section 6. The story resurfaces, a new film and renewed scrutiny. Months after the initial furor had subsided, the story resurfaced with the release of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As the premiere approached in late 2022, journalists revisited the banking incident, fans revisited the banking incident, drawing connections between the themes of justice, identity, and his real-life experience. Promotional tour footage sparked questions about the arrest, making the story impossible to fade from view. Outlets like the Atlanta Black Star published re-examinations, placing the incident in the context of Coogler's career and the film's cultural impact. A director celebrated for black excellence and sovereignty had been subjected to a humiliating, racially charged incident. Coogler addressed the incident with quiet dignity. He expressed a desire to move on, but acknowledged the gravity of what happened. Section 7. Documenting the incident. The book and the receipts. In the quest for a complete and accurate understanding of the Ryan Coogler incident, journalists and independent researchers compiled and published detailed records of the event. Journalists and independent researchers compiling documents and files. This effort to show the receipts became central to public discourse. It moved the story beyond emotion and into factual analysis. News organizations meticulously created timelines, 911 call, police dispatch, body camera footage, official statements. These timelines let the public follow the sequence precisely. Mr. Coogler entering the bank, Mr. Coogler being released from custody. The documentary impulse went beyond news articles. A short, independently published book became a comprehensive archive. Available on platforms like Amazon. Full transcript of the 911 call, excerpts from Atlanta Police Department report, complete text of Bank of America's apology, screenshots of social media reactions. The book compiled primary sources for an objective record. It empowered readers to analyze the evidence and draw conclusions. These documents provided irrefutable proof of key facts. Section 8. Voices for Change. Policy debates and personal stories. The Ryan Coogler incident did more than spark outrage. It catalyzed a debate about tangible policy changes. Civil rights advocates, legal experts, community leaders called for concrete reforms in banking and law enforcement. For banks, the primary demand was mandatory anti-bias training for employees, especially for customer-facing roles. Advocates said training could help staff recognize and mitigate implicit biases and teach them to seek clarification and de-escalate instead of assuming the worst. The goal: change institutional culture from suspicion to service. Beyond training, calls rose to review and overhaul security protocols. Critics questioned policies that led an employee to trigger a 911 robbery alert for a transaction that, while unusual, had non-criminal explanations. Suggested fix: multi-step verification for large withdrawals. Require a manager's approval before contacting law enforcement for non-violent situations. Create clearer internal communication channels to resolve issues without police intervention. The idea was more checks and balances to prevent fear or bias causing dangerous encounters. On the law enforcement side, the incident reignited discussions about response protocols. The Atlanta Police Department said officers followed procedure, while some experts questioned whether that procedure is always appropriate. Could officers be trained to do more initial investigation before resorting to drawing weapons and using handcuffs? Could dispatchers be trained to ask more probing questions to assess threat reality? Policy debates were amplified by a wave of personal stories online. Section 9. Aftermath and Outcomes. In the final analysis, the arrest of Ryan Coogler at Bank of America concluded without any legal charges, but it left a lasting impact on all parties involved and on the public conversation. The most immediate outcome, the Atlanta Police Department and Bank of America acknowledged a serious error. No charges were ever filed against Mr. Coogler, as it was unequivocally clear that he had done nothing wrong. The officers involved were cleared of any wrongdoing, as their actions were deemed consistent with their training in response to a reported felony. The responsibility for the incident was placed firmly on the bank and its internal failures. For his part, Ryan Coogler accepted Bank of America's apology and chose to resolve the matter directly with the bank. He stated publicly that he had discussed the situation with them and was satisfied with their response, though the specific details of that resolution were not made public. His primary public statement emphasized his relief that the situation did not escalate into violence and his desire for the incident to be a learning experience. By choosing not to pursue a high-profile lawsuit or engage in a prolonged public battle, he steered the conversation away from personal retribution and towards systemic change and mutual understanding. The incident served as a stark and public lesson for the banking industry. While Bank of America did not publicize the specifics of its internal review, the event put the entire financial sector on notice. The immense negative publicity and public pressure highlighted the significant reputational and financial risks associated with failing to address issues of implicit bias in customer service. Ultimately, the arrest of Ryan Coogler became a cultural touchstone, a clear and well-documented case study of banking while black. The availability of body camera footage, the 911 call, and official reports provided a rare level of transparency, allowing for a nuanced and fact-based public debate. This is part 2. From the moment in handcuffs to the policy debates and aftermath. A chronology with receipts. Maintaining continuity, the story stays grounded in verified records. A conversation that outlived the headlines. What would prevent the next misunderstanding? Policies, training, and empathy, working together, coverage and documents from national outlets and public records. Part 2 concludes.